Hey there guys, it's Caitlyn, and I just want to say before we get started that I have enjoyed Starfield. It is a fun game, and it's taken a lot of features that I enjoy from Fallout. However, it ultimately ends up being disappointing in my eyes, falling short of what it was marketed, and I'm going to jump ahead for those who just want the early scoring, and for me to say that the game, from the hours that I've played during early access, really it sits at around a 6 or a 7 out of 10. With mods and further updates, which I think this game sorely needs, it could end up really being a modder's playground, and I think this game might become a 7 or an 8. Starfield, and every Bethesda game, is advertised with the Bethesda game's mantra of be who you want, go where you want, as Todd Howard said. But except in 2022, he added, but this time you'll be exploring space. And well, Starfield ultimately fails at doing this very thing. It is a space game where you, quote, weren't really limited in where you could go and what you could do. Sadly, having played Starfield now for many hours, it really feels like I am limited. It really feels like I can't go where I want to, and I can't do what I want. I can't be many things I feel I could be in previous Bethesda games. Still, there are things which Starfield does succeed in, and I want to go over those first. However, if you'd rather just hear my negatives on the game and see why I don't like it as much as some others, I'll make sure to tag here in the video or down below in the comments with where I've done that. But to begin, what makes Starfield a good game? City environments and indoor locales. Any area where Bethesda's design philosophy is essentially that of Fallout 4 and returning to previous games, Starfield really succeeds in this. Space stations look cool, the cities of the Well, Neon and Aquila are nicely done, with style to them that just really shines. And New Atlantis, whilst not being the most graphically pretty place, has a fairly unique transit system and shopping mall areas that kind of give you the vibe of what the city is about. Ultimately, most of the cities are done very well, and the side stories involved in these locations really make them work. The cities themselves kind of stand out to me, at least the major ones. Aquila having gangs and shootouts, Neon's issues with bribery, drugs and smuggling being a very cyberpunk-like place. New Atlantis has its problems and bureaucracy, and the security just kind of fails to really get things done in the middle because of paperwork and backlogs with that. It all really fits into the themes that Bethesda seems to be trying to establish these new kind of factions and groups within the universe. Does it compare to the Elder Scrolls or the Fallout's kind of environments? Not necessarily. The factions don't really compare at all, and frankly one of the factions, the Rangers, and I think they're called like the Free Commonwealth or something, I'm not even sure, that's how much they don't stand out to me, but they're basically just the NCR. It's the NCR again, and I like them because of that, but I don't like them that much otherwise. Overall, each of the areas does stand out enough that I quite like them, but the general design of Starfield and its NASA punk environment just makes me think, man, I really want to reshade this, I want to add more colour, because while Skyrim was kind of a environment of browns and lazy greens, this just is that again, except graphically it doesn't feel anywhere near on par as its competitors. Even Baldur's Gate, which obviously is a top-down RPG, just looks prettier. Gunplay and the skill system. The guns are an improvement. They're an improvement for Fallout 4, but that's kind of to be expected given the period. In Fallout, all of the available guns are essentially just scavenged together pieces or things that have been taken from the old world and are rare because of that. Starfield, because it's now more modern and in the future, has an excess of weaponry that feels and sounds good to use. Ballistics feel good, the lasers are on par, and I think some of the more unique weapons do stand out. It's nowhere near that of an FPS if you're looking for that kind of quality, but for an RPG, they feel satisfying. Skill system again feels like just a continuation of what they did in Fallout 4 with this long kind of list of skills that can improve your gameplay overall, but don't necessarily change it that much. Mostly it seems like you can kind of do pretty much everything other than ship unlocks and maybe lockpicks and such, which you need to go into the skills for. Otherwise it's just percentage increases and improving how you use certain systems, such as making outposts on extreme condition planets, which you can't do unless you take that particular skill or have someone who's skilled in that skill. There is also a great degree of clarity in how these skills work. They're very easy to read, it's easy to see how they work and how they will delve into your gameplay. I do think that moving on, this is going to be a game which really lets you build a variety of styles, I think. Particularly once mods come in and change that a little bit more. It's the kind of game where you're going to be looking at YouTubers like Fudge Muppet as they start to create build guides, and I think we'll really start to see that Starfield can become an open world game with a variety of styles. It just doesn't feel like you can do that in the base game. In the base game, there's probably 1 to 3 builds that you can do, depending on how effective you want to be with your gunplay. But we'll see. I think that more will come, and I do think this is a great kind of foundation. Crew management, outpost building, and shipbuilding. These systems are just straight improvements from the previous games and how you manage companions and how you build and update your houses. I think that shipbuilding kind of falls in a UI issue where sometimes it's not very clear, but it is fun. It's very fun to kind of almost Spore-like sit there and build your ship, manage it together, or just get an entirely new ship by taking it from pirates or buying it. It's an engaging system. I quite like it. I hope they continue to build upon it. And it's similar with the outpost system, where I really enjoy what's currently there. I just am left kind of wishing that it wasn't just a port from things like 76 into the single player games. But still, it's good to see that they are doing that. They are furthering it and taking it further. The planetary surveys really work into this, which I enjoy. You kind of combine the resources and can be extracted and then farmed on certain planets, and that works with your outposts, and it forms this fun symbiosis of mechanics that just works, as Todd Howard says. And there is a kind of a fun mini game of landing on the planets and seeing, I say mini game, it's not really a mini game, but just landing in different locales on a planet and seeing how much variety there is and how it looks, you know, dusty mountains, rocky crater regions, forests, ice-capped places, all on the same planet, depending on the planet that you land on. It kind of it creates a scenario of, where's my dream home going to be? Where's my dream settlement? And what kind of resources will it provide in the area I've put it down? One place might be aluminium and water, another is iron and cobalt, and it really kind of makes you pick on where you want to be, and probably build multiple outposts because of that, then linking them together to supply the main base, as it were. Combining this with the actual home purchases available in the game, it gives a very rural versus city vibe, where you have your life out on the frontier, but that's vastly different to that of your city life. You have these penthouses and apartments, and they just end up being a very different feeling from the habitat spaces that you are hand building. To take it back to Skyrim, it's a bit like having the breeze home house that you have in your cities, as opposed to the houses that you've hand built and dragged all the planks and, you know, items to make that. There's a very different vibe in how they're set up and how they're built, different kind of luxury. But because of that, it kind of makes you want to have both, which is just another way to get you engaging with the economy of the game. One thing I do end up wishing about the outpost system is that I do really hope they add a bit more kind of interaction with the actual environment that you're in. Obviously you can extract resources, but I mean, so far from me playing the game, I haven't seen a way for you to kind of have a space ranch. You know, there's so many animals wandering around. It would be nice to kind of import animals, or, you know, grow them, or have some kind of system like that. You know, I have an outpost in a habitable region of space. Could I not do a bit more like that? Maybe there is further into the game, but as of me playing so far, having around 30 to 40 hours in it, I haven't seen that. But hopefully they do expand upon it and they do add this kind of thing. I would really love that. I think that adding more emphasis on the habitats and that kind of frontier region of space would just really feed into what Starfield was initially trying to go for, and it can only work out. So, crew management. Honestly, it's a enjoyable expansion of the follower system. You place your crew in settlements or on your ship, and they provide active bonuses to it. Knowing what your followers are good at with the kind of certified system, I really like that. It's nice to just plain see, I'm good at lasers, I'm good at geology, I'm good at outpost management. It's better than just kind of vaguely wondering, well, you know, I think Lydia is good in armor, but I can't really tell. I think that this character is good in this. You know, if I take Piper, is she going to actually be a good shot? I have no idea. They're all kind of generic NPCs with a different colouring, a different look to them, but ultimately we're the same. Starfield makes them feel a little bit more different. So that has a really good change. And there is, I have to say, a fun aspect of having 3 to 4 companions on your ship, and you come home, you board the ship after doing all of your work in the city, and there's a chorus of, "Oh, hello, Captain. I've got something for you. I found this," or hearing them talk when you take off, or in dogfights or talking. It's fun. I like it. They have also kind of added I guess for lack of a better word, Baldur's Gate system of your characters can quip in and talk for you in certain scenarios. There was an instance I had where Sam Coe spoke for me when speaking to his father, and he would kind of say like, "Oh, it's this bit. I'm entitled to this because blah blah blah." And other characters have had that as well, and I like it. I think it's a good expansion of actually having the companion there. It takes over that feeling of, yes, my companion's with me, yes, Lydia's here, but she's not actually being engaged for me being the Dragonborn at all. She doesn't care. She's not saying anything. She'll just say, "I'm sworn to carry your burdens for the 50th time," and that's that. This kind of is obviously more effort, but it adds more to the story and kind of makes it feel like at least your companions are there. They are engaging. They are actually responding to what's going on, and I like that. I hope that continues to be the case in the next Bethesda games. Just keep expanding upon that and keep trying to make the world feel like a living world. That's really what Bethesda games are about. Then there are the improved minigames with persuasion and lockpicking. There are probably a few others, but these are the ones that really stood out to me, and once I worked out how they actually functioned, I was like, oh, this is great. And I really hope that they continue to add these kind of small puzzles in. I feel like a lot of RPGs are doing this now, adding just a little bit more side variety into how the game works. Ironically, I think that Honkai Star Rail is the best example of this. Just adding these very simple puzzles, but they're engaging enough that when you complete them, you feel like, oh yeah, that was something nice, and you get a little bit of a reward for doing it. I'd like to see Bethesda to continue to try and do that. Their minigames would work in that form. To expand and actually tell you what the minigames are about, we have Persuasion, and how this works is you get a system of options. Rather than just clicking persuade as you have in previous games and the game running a calculation of did you persuade them, how high is your persuasion skill, there's a little bit more to it. It is that element to a degree, but it is more is there. There is more that you can visibly do in the game, and an auto persuade feature for if you succeed enough persuasions you unlock that kind of auto completing one of them. So you first click that open, you start the minigame, you've clicked the persuasion button, and a series of notches appear. The way this works is that each option has a number of notches that will provide you if you succeed with that. For example, +1, +3, +6, etc. Positive notches that you're going to get. And the NPC will have a requirement of a number of notches needed to be persuaded listed in the bottom of the persuasion screen. The likelihood of you succeeding persuasion is indicated by colour, with green being likely, yellow less so, and red an ultimately slim chance. You get about 4 to 3 turns of you doing this, and then you see what happens. You persuade them or you don't, and the outcome proceeds from that. The likelihood of persuading and succeeding that is indicated by the colours, but you also can improve it via skills, and it ultimately does end up feeling a bit more gamey, but it makes persuasion more fun. It does feel like the skill is there's a bit more going on, and I feel like this is the natural progression of the old Oblivion skill, where you kind of move the pies around, the little pizza squares, click them, and the NPC reacted. This is like a less gamey version of that, and more that feels like an actual back and forth conversation, because the NPC does react to what you're saying. For lockpicking, you have a kind of keyhole minigame. There are these rings, usually 2, sometimes more, with around 4 or 5 holes in them, and you've got 4 keys, later 6, and then 8s and probably more. I haven't got to the last level of lockpick difficulty. These keys ultimately fit into the holes, and each time you'll have 2 keys that fit into one ring, and the next ring requires 2 more keys, and that's kind of how it works. So let's say, as an example, to try and tell you how it works, that you have 3 keys. These 3 keys all have 3 prongs, and the ring that you're currently on has 5 holes. So you try and find the key of the 3 that works. There's one that really feels like it fits, and then you find another key in your set of 6 that fits the remaining 2 holes. Okay, you lock them both in, click, click, you move on to the inner ring. Now you only have the remaining keys that you haven't used to beat this ring. And what you can do, and what you have to check, is that you can see both rings when you're playing the game. So you have to check that you don't accidentally kind of lock yourself out and not have enough keys that beat the remaining ring. Sometimes there'll be multiple keys that can all fit into the first ring, but only certain ones of them will fit into the second ring. So it is a puzzle in of itself, and I think it feels better than the original lockpick game. But don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy the Oblivion, Skyrim, and Fallout, like just hitting the lock and you fiddle with it and you unlock it. But that was it was a game that was kind of solved. It wasn't like a thinking game, which I think works more with like high-tech futuristic security. You're not going to have doors that just you pick open with like a small lockpick. Obviously having like a coded kind of input that you do makes more sense. Ultimately I do think it feels better. I kind of hope that the Elder Scrolls remains doing the simple lockpick, because I think that works for the normal fantasy, the olden days kind of style games. But for futuristic games, for some kind of some doors in Fallout that are high-tech factions, I wouldn't mind this being put in. I think this is a good improvement on the system. It does ultimately change the flaw of the previous system, which was that lockpick difficulty didn't really matter. You didn't have to put any points in lockpicking because you could beat any lock. It didn't really matter. So long as you knew the lockpick game, with 1 to 3 lockpicks, you could beat an expert lock with no lockpicking skill just because you knew how it worked. This is a little more arbitrary because you do have to actually progress the skill to unlock the next tier of locks. For example, if you've taken a point in security, you only really get to unlock like the novice locks and maybe the expert ones if you've taken the point. You don't get to unlock like you get like novice, intermediate. You unlock those, then you have to put in another point to get expert or master. So I do dislike that it's just forcing you to take security with no real benefit other than, hey, you can unlock the next tier of lockbox or the next kind of tier of door. And it feels bad if you're playing a stealth character or a kind of like thief character that you have to do this, and there is no real feasible benefit otherwise. There's no like gameplay benefits. But I guess that's just that's how it's going to be if you're going to play this kind of system. But now, let's just take a deep breath, because it's time for me to move on to the slightly more passionate side of my issues with Starfield and the negatives. And it is full of negatives. This game, it's not bad, but it is so disappointing in so many elements. And the key issue that I'm going to have to go off on about is spaceflight. The single most damning part of all of Starfield is the spaceflight. The spaceflight in this game is horrendous. The Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, and any other space game completely blow Starfield out of the water. Starfield's spaceflight is essentially you not moving in space and everything moving towards you, which is common. I understand that. Many games do use this as a kind of trick behind the game systems, but never have I played a game where it is so obvious as Starfield has made it. Flying down to a planet is essentially impossible, and you can't manually dock with ships or space stations. Instead, everything is a button press, animation, and then another loading screen. Starfield is Skyrim without the open world, just a series of loading screens and no major open world component. Yes, on the planets you can wander around, but they don't interconnect. Every world is like its own thing, which requires another loading screen to get off of. There is no fully connected map space. You cannot fly around in Starfield and get from like world to world, which, yes, I get it. There have been videos of you being able to fly to planets, but they're JPEGs. You were not intended to do this, and even then, it took around 7 hours reportedly to fly to Pluto, which was just an image. You couldn't get on it that way. You had to actually travel to it using the fast travel systems. One of the most common things I've heard of when playing Starfield, and something that I did myself, is when you got past the initial opening of the game, everybody spends around 10 to 20 minutes trying to fly to the moon of the planet, as you're instructed, because it's a space game. Why wouldn't you be able to fly to a nearby moon? But no, the way you're supposed to get there is essentially through warping via the grav drive to get there. Most people, as the game will direct, will now go on the space map and click to go there with a fast travel button that you hold down and immediately go into a loading screen, then appear on the planet, landing visually in an animation. Again, animation, loading screen, animation, loading screen. You can technically do this in game. If you're in your ship, you can open the scanner, point it where you're going, and click to go there, and it will start a neat little around 5 to 8 second animation of your character flicking various buttons, powering up the engines, and then a neat UI element of it ticking down, and then wow, you fly off, the portal opens and you're gone. But this is still terrible. I could understand not being able to fly to entirely different planets that are miles away. I get that, sure. Even in Elite Dangerous, which continually comes up as the example in my mind, that takes ages to do. You usually have to warp there, and even then it would be like continual warp speed. It takes a long time. That is the space trucker game, sure. But in Elite, because it's not just a loading screen all the time, you can get attacked going in and out of warp. You can be pulled out of warp in warp. People can come and collide with you. There is a situation, the introduction of the aliens in Elite was them appearing in your warps and doing crazy things where you thought you were safe. It's not perfect, it's not the most engaging gameplay, and I'm probably not representing it the best, but I'm trying to give you an example of just how much of an immense failure Starfield spaceflight is. Every other example of spaceflight in games is better than just a loading screen. I think my time in my spaceship may be under like 5% of the time that I've played this game, and that sucks. The spaceflight in Starfield is nothing more than an on-rail shooter that occasionally allows you to talk to some other ships, exchange memes with them, or blow up asteroids. That the scavenging of destroyed ships isn't a system or some kind of special mechanic or item that you get to do it on your ship. It is merely pressing E on a dead and destroyed ship and looting it like a Skyrim corpse shows you how blatantly undercooked space travel is in Starfield. Out my time playing this game on the ground level, I would enjoy it, then be constantly reminded how much better this game would be if some element of what I was doing worked in space, if space interacted in any way with the ground mechanics. Your spaceship is essentially useless. You cannot really fly it for a long period of time unless you're engaged in the arcade minigame dogfights, which are okay. They, however, just ultimately pale in comparison to games that are years old. And again, there'll be excuses for this, I understand. It's the engine. The engine is old. How many times are we going to say this? It's old. But if the engine for a space game limits it so that it cannot render space or do proper space travel, why has Bethesda made a space game in that engine? They had 12 years, 8 years if you want to say it started from Fallout. I think it probably started earlier. How have they not thought about this? I mean, for God's sake, they often cite that Starfield is a 25-year vision of a new franchise. Did no one think about the space travel or question how it worked in this game? I could go on. Honestly, I could do like an hour rant of the space travel and why it just frustrates me in Starfield, but we should continue on. There is more I want to talk about. So, Starfield's UI is perhaps the worst of any Bethesda game, a repeat thing that I keep citing, I know. There's very little put into it. It's not clear, and it sticks down to this NASA punk rustic theme, which I feel continually holds the game back. Oftentimes, the UI straight up doesn't tell you things, or is unreadable. For me, someone who's blind in one eye, I regularly had to stick my face against the screen to try and read what the keys were, and even then, they felt random. They didn't feel like keys that made sense for what I was doing. For example, in the character creator, the mouse wheel pretty much does nothing other than scroll the menu up and down. The overall menu. Not the individualistic one that you've selected, not the option that you've just clicked, so you can't scroll the bar up and down even though it looks like it should be able to. You can't even click and drag the option. You have to use the arrow keys to move it back and forth, or click. Did no one play this game on PC? Has everyone just played it on a controller? And then there's the space tutorial, which basically doesn't teach you what the power abbreviations mean. Yes, you can easily work them out, but it would be nice if the game just told me straight up what they each did. I've opted into the space tutorial. Run me down on how this works. Don't just give me a vague idea of what things are and tell me to shoot a pirate. Nothing in this game's UI is clear. You can very easily pick up contraband and then get arrested for it in space. And the game doesn't really teach you what the hell to do with contraband. How do you get past the scans? It will give you a basic, very basic view of, hey, contraband is bad, hey, this system works like this, but never does the game actually go into detail about most of its systems. It doesn't try to teach you, the player. Another basic thing that made me scratch my head was the options menu when you are talking to a character. In Baldur's Gate and other games like it, you can just click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many options there are, and it will immediately go to the second option, the third option, whatever you wanted that you've clicked on your keys. In Starfield, you have to go up and down with the W, A, S, and D, or click it with the mouse. This is a small thing, but why don't we have this? On a controller, in the Fallout games, you could just click, A, B, Y, whatever, X, square, triangle, however you were playing the game, and it clicked that option. We have the technology. Why is it not there? It feels again and again like Starfield just doesn't do what previous Bethesda games have done. Exploration, the final frontier, space. Starfield has continually hyped up exploration. It's kind of like the big thing of exploring space. They really kept mentioning it in a lot of the promo material. You can learn about, wild fauna, see the flora, see how they interact, and there is an element of that. The periodic table is back in a vengeance, reminding me of high school and the horrors of chemistry class. But once you actually get to scanning the monsters, the plants and the rocks, I realised, man, that's it. That's it. I walk up to monsters, several of them, and click a button, and it goes boop, and that's it. I do enough boop until I've got 100%. Then I've got the 100% of the 100%, and that's it. I'm done. You run, you scan. You run, you scan. There's nothing more. That's it. Sometimes you can call to a planet, and all you need to do is click the scan once in space, and that's it. You've scanned it. I mean, the good aspect of this is that there are missions to specifically go and do that. You scan planets, you catalog them, and that you get rewarded for that. It's chill. It's just not very fun. I mean, it's a nice thing that when you scan planets and you get the full data, you get little discs of planet data, which you can sell. But the fact is, that's it, and it's just disappointing. Again, where is something else to do with this system? I spoke to a friend on this, and they were shocked that there wasn't, something else that you could do in this. There was no little dune buggy that you could ride around on. If you put 3 points in scanning, maybe you've got a dune buggy or a Mars rover that you could do it. Controlling a little robot that goes around and does it all, and is faster than you, or has some kind of advantage, or maybe it digs in the ground and gets the soil qualities, or some other aspect of learning about, planet life. None of it's there. It's just a chill thing to do that interacts a little bit with your outposts, because outposts can give scanning boosts. But it's just so formulaic and boring. I don't care that there's 1,000 planets if they're all the goddamn same. It's No Man's Sky again. Finally, the writing, the main story. If you've looked at this channel, you may already realise that I'm disappointed by it. It's just bad. I do think it's bad. It's not terrible. It works. It does the job. But again, to be confronted literally 5 minutes into the game with yet another, wow, you're the chosen one. And not even because something has happened to you. You're not, the survivor. You're not the sole survivor. You're not the lone wanderer, as you can be in Fallout. You're not the hero of Kvatch because you've done something. You're not the Dragonborn because you killed the dragon. You touched an artifact. You touch a rock. I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story, but I'm going to tell you that literally 5 minutes in the game, you touch a rock, see some interstellar vision, and you're the chosen one. That's it. Only one other person in your friends has seen the rock and seen the vision. Everyone else touches it. Nothing. They're not as important as you. That's it. And I've come to realise that Bethesda truly are the marvel of RPG writing. It's the same old stuff, man. It's old quippy dialogue and cutbacks that mean nothing. No NPC really cares. No one can really get involved. No one can get emotional because that's weird. That's something that we can't take seriously. We're too afraid of ourselves to get super involved. We only have to show you the big flashy thing and then move on to the next big flashy thing. Legitimately, the story of Starfield felt like MMO, just click button, run to next objective, click button, run back, do it again and again and again. It was fetch quests, fetching stuff, talking to someone for 5 seconds and then moving along. And I know previous quests in Bethesda games have been like this, but it felt really bad in Starfield. Main story characters are what you'd expect. They're a collection of explorers with really not much reason to have come together, but you know, they have their plucky band of good guys who are here to find special artifacts. I'm not going to spoil it any further. That's just literally the main story, the start of the game. I won't tell you anything else about how it works. However, you were highly incentivized to rush the main story. I won't say why, but you should focus on it beyond everything else, which again feels so un-Bethesda. I don't understand why that's the case. Most people barely finish the main story. They just like to go off and do the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood, or go and join the NCR and do their stuff. Like, it's frustrating and boring at times. There are sections of the side stories which are fun. There are engaging characters that I like and scenarios built around them. There's some world building that I really enjoy. I really love the underground cities and what's going on in the outposts and stuff, but you do these and then you'll probably never see those characters again, and they're just more interesting than the characters that you're with, so it's so frustrating. When I was writing this review, when I was creating it and going over the full kind of dialogue of what I was going to say, I showed people my thoughts, many people, what I was writing and kind of how long I was writing it, and most people just said, I've got one word to say, and it's mediocre. The game is mediocre. And it is. It frustrates me, but it is. There is this nagging thought in my head of, oh well, if they keep developing it, it'll be good. It'll be a great kind of base game for mods or future DLC. But Bethesda has never shown that they will do that. They don't do free updates to single player games. I mean, look at Skyrim. Skyrim just, it had a free update. Yes, it got a couple of small tweaks, but they didn't even give us fishing for free. And the few mods they added, you still have to buy the Anniversary Edition to get that. You get some of the updates to the code and such, sure, but you can't get fishing for free. This game, ultimately, it's been 12 years since Skyrim. It's been 8 years since Fallout 4, and it feels like a regression. This game is not better than either of them in its story, and the marketing tool of making this a new franchise, I don't want this as a franchise. Please just give me Elder Scrolls 6, give me Fallout 5, because Starfield, while a good game, doesn't have the character. It's fun, it's a fun world to shoot, to harvest loot, to explore cities, but graphically, it doesn't look good. The skyboxes of space look bad, the characters look dated on launch. This game just looks like a game that was built for the 2010s, not the 2020s. At the end of all of this, I just find myself going, yeah, this game, it doesn't deserve a 7, frankly, it is a 6 out of 10. It needs more work, Bethesda. It's a good foundation, something I would like to play a bit more, but next time, maybe try writing a story where I'm not the most important character the moment I'm born. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you got this far, I really appreciate you. Maybe leave a comment down below. Give me your thoughts. What did you think about Starfield's early access? Or are you playing it now and you really like it? I want to know. I do have a lot of opinions about it, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy the game. If you've liked the video, please subscribe. I've got a Baldur's Gate review coming soon. I just want to make sure that I fully complete that game so that I can give it the full review it deserves. And I will most likely revisit Starfield once I've explored more of it, put in the full kind of 100 hours and seen every detail that I think this game can give to me. Maybe even tried some mods. We'll see. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.